accept that contraception might not be the worst idea. Those are my two negatives. Like, at least I feel the Church of England got to a nice point where it's just like, yeah, nobody really believes us anymore, but fuck it, let's just all go through the motions.
And that's the cold open.
We're recording.
I missed the bit where you said about Catholics raping kids, but yeah.
Oh, god damn it. Well, seeing as we've already got ourselves demonetized, even if our channel was monetized, this video would now be demonetized. I think we should start on the MMA Split's loosest podcast to date. We are 2 days late due to several technical issues. We are without video. We are audio only today. And I am here, as always, with producer Josh.
Hello. You can't see me, but you can hear me. And
Yeah, he's like John Cena. You
yeah,
can't see him, but his time is now.
yeah. Apologies for the video issue. My PC shit the bed this week, and I don't get paid till Friday, so can't repair that one
And
now.
And apologies from me as well, because my dad was visiting, so I'd already cancelled on Monday and said, let's do Tuesday instead, which then meant that, yeah, when his laptop fucked up and his PC fucked up, we had to be an extra day late. But apologies all round, particularly because it was a massive card that we need to do the breakdown for, with a lot of talking points. Talking point number one, we were wrong. We were wrong about many things on this card. I was right on my pick, which I'm happy with for the main event. It's pretty much the only thing I got right. We're going to be discussing all of that, controversial decisions, fights that maybe shouldn't have happened, or certainly fighters that probably shouldn't have never been allowed to make it to the octagon, and what the hell's going on there.
I've got a
Guys,
lot to say on that
please subscribe if you're not subscribed, like the video if you're enjoying the content, feel free to drop comments as well, even if they're a little bit on the critical side, and massive thank you guys, because we had over 300 views on our last video in our preview show for UFC 280, which might not sound like the largest number of views in terms of other channels, but for a couple of guys that are used to getting like 10, 20, 30 views and are excited if we get something over 100, that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. So we hope you guys enjoyed the show. We're going to try and keep making this better, although this week is obviously a little bit low tech, but we'll still be filled with our personalities, our insights, however completely unqualified we are to give them, and our opinions, starting with a main event where, I'll be honest, I kind of gave myself an out on this one because I said that I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. You were in the very much Charles is gonna
I
get
specifically
this done.
said he's not going to throw that jump knee to clinch combo. I specifically said you're not going to see that jumping flying knee out of him. And what did he do? What did he do? Well, to be fair, he didn't really turn up for that one. That's not the fired up Oliveira I was promising. That wasn't the steely, knows no fear, knows no intimidation, always performs Charles Oliveira. That was a little bit of an off night, taking nothing away from Islam. What a great fucking fight. What a great performance from Islam. But that was not...
Islam's the man.
That was not the Charlie Olives that I thought was going to show up on Saturday. Nothing against him, not ragging on him, just saying. I was a bit surprised.
I understand what you're saying, but I feel he was pretty confident going in. I don't feel this is like an off-night situation. I just think this is a case where, in reality, Makhachev is a horrible matchup for him. And there were certain things that Charles has been able to do in his title reign that he wasn't given the opportunity to do here with Makhachev. And one of the key ones, I think, and the real standout points from this, and it's not actually my point, I saw Luke Thomas making this point, and I completely agree with him. There's nothing wrong with Charles's offense. The problem is that Makhachev has got much better defense. So, right from the off, the pullback, counter hooks, counter left hands he was landing, the movement, he was just so calm and assured and defensively responsible and picked his moments rather than just being overly aggressive. And one of the big issues, I think, for Charles in this is that he didn't have the ground as an opportunity for him to kind of take a breather and recover. The clinch and the ground was a situation where he was having to constantly work and defend. And when he's been clipped against other guys, when he's been clipped against Gaethje, when he's been clipped against Poirier, being able to go to the ground has given him recovery time and an opportunity to kind of get his wits about him and get his sort of breath back to a certain extent, pace himself. And I don't think that with Makhachev's style, he ever had that opportunity.
Well, also, I didn't think his offense was that good on Saturday night. I felt like he made a lot of mistakes. I felt he looked a little sloppy, a little lethargic, and in areas where he would usually willfully pull the trigger on the elbows, on the hooks, just wasn't quite there. I mean, he got stung early by Makhachev, and it was almost like mentally he was just kind of playing catch up from that point on. He did look to threaten a little bit on the ground, and I think that even though it is nice when he can recover against people that are just, as soon as it hits the mat, there's a huge golfing talent and they don't want to be down there with Oliveira. I still felt that given that he's a guy that's going to look to finish you inside 2, if not 3 rounds, and Makhachev's usually going to look to put a beating on you across the entire fight, I wasn't worried about it in the same way that you and Luke might have been. Although obviously, my optimism was foolhardy. Frankly, he didn't make it enough of a scrappy fight. He wasn't as clinical as he usually is when he gets into close quarters, and it is a little bit more aggressive. And I've always kind of worried, if your reputation is you get hit, you get rocked once or twice real good, and it kind of wakes you up, and that's that's almost your path to victory. That's not a sustainable strategy. Eventually, your chin goes. Eventually you just become very easy to knock out. I'm not saying that that's where he is, because I feel like there were other factors on Saturday night. I feel like it was just a bit sloppy from Charles, and obviously just a flawless performance on the other side from Islam. But
Islam was fantastic. I mean, he bettered him in the clinch, on the ground, and in the stand-up. He beat him in all phases of MMA. You got to tip your hat to the guy. It's hard not to feel, if I was to draw a kind of like sort of similarity in terms of what we've seen before. Khabib retires. Charles takes that space in between with some really exciting fights. I mean, a much more exciting title reign where he's getting dropped and then he's coming back, and it's, exciting, and he's finishing all of these guys and making it look, really, really fun. And now we have a true top, no weaknesses, excellent everywhere champion coming through. And it feels like Robbie Lawler after GSP. And Robbie Lawler probably had the most exciting title reign at welterweight, but one of the reasons it was the most exciting was that he wasn't that leagues and strides ahead of his competition in the way that GSP, and obviously for a certain amount of time, Woodley was. And even then, it still took time for sort of Usman to emerge as a dominant champion. But it just kind of feels, looking at this, like we've all forgotten just how dominant and how good Khabib is. And this in-between period where some excellent guys have fought for the belt and Oliveira has been the best of the rest of these excellent guys, we've kind of just forgotten what that true top-level Dagestani Sambo fighter looks like. And Makhachev is that guy, if not improved from Khabib. Certainly more well-rounded.
Definitely more well-rounded than Khabib. Volkanovski, though. That is a very complete fighter. That is a guy that is not scared to take a bit of top control with a dangerous grappler. And to be honest, Makhachev's a very different guy on his back. I mean, everyone is to a degree, but I thought Ortega probably would be the most dangerous guy that Volks had to lie on top of. I'm very, very fucking excited for Islam's first title defense, and I'm not saying that he can't beat Volkanovski. I think it's a very, very close fight. I think that's honestly the best fight they can make right now in that division. Although
I agree with you.
In a different division, you know what I'm saying.
My heart breaks for Benio, because we're going to talk about him, but goddamn, that should be enough to get you a title shot.
I think he might be next man up.
I'd be down for that, but
certainly this way, he's going to take a little bit of a break after this last fight. He's not going to be fighting in a month or two. Whereas All they need is one card to have a big fight fall out, one headliner drop off on a pay-per-view. Volk, I assume, is reasonably ready to go. Islam didn't take any damage really. You know, you could book that one maybe for the end of the year. Certainly
Well,
mid-January wouldn't be ridiculous.
well, we'll get to post-fight stuff. Charles's reign is over. I know obviously it ended when he lost the belt on the scales, you know, before fighting Gaethje, but let's be honest, he was the champion going into this fight in so many ways. His reign's over. It's been a seriously exciting one. I don't know if he, on a better night, maybe he catches him with something, but I just feel Makhachev's going to be a hard guy to beat. He wins the belt. Father's plan is complete. Khabib is now coached his protege to the title that he held. And this is where it gets a bit fun because the knock that you have on Khabib as champion is that he didn't fight very often. And, you know, there were two interim champions in his reign, and he won a vacant belt against Iaquinta. So there's a lot of these frustrations that come with Khabib. Islam Makhachev wants to fight all the time, and he wants to fight everyone. The Volkanovski fight's great. I really like that. I don't know how much of a chance Volks has got in that, but I think being a bit smaller, being extremely stocky, having that kind of power a bit more concentrated into a smaller frame, the fact that he'll be faster, I think these are all things that will give an interesting problem against somebody like Makhachev, particularly someone who likes to be able to, you know, get those hip tosses and judo throws, pressure guys against the cage. And I just think Volkanovski is so quick with his hands. His footwork is so good. I think that's going to be a challenge for Makhachev.
I think he comes
But he wants to fight
as well.
Yeah, well, he used to fight at 170, mate. His only defeat is at 170.
Yep, he is a phenomenal athlete who is fucking peaking right now. He is one of the best I've ever seen do it, pound for pound. Islam Makhachev is a fucking monster. Very excited to have him as the new champ. I'm not saying he's going to lose the belt right out of the gates, and even if he did, he's got every chance of winning it back very quickly. But I really like that fight.
Yeah, for Volk, it's a who gives a fuck fight. Everyone thinks the guy's a monster. I've got nothing to lose. Fuck it, go up, big fight, and you know, you were talking about doing it early January. Well, I can tell you what date they are looking for that fight to happen. They're already murmuring about it headlining UFC 284 in Australia.
Is that February 284?
That's February 12th. And I'll tell you what other fight they're looking at, as we segue down, is Sterling versus Cejudo as a co-main event.
Yep. Another great fight. And, I mean, where else do you start on this one? But what is your opinion of TJ going in there with a hideous injury?
I'm fuming. There's so many different reasons. If you were in his shoes,
would you have done the same thing?
That's an interesting question.
That's the only question as far as I'm concerned.
It's not about what I would do, it's what I should be allowed to do for a bunch of really legitimate and very good reasons. So one of the reasons why every time I've ever seen a shoulder dislocation in a fight, it's been fight over, is that once it pops out once, it's going to pop out again and again, and each time it's going to be worse and worse and worse. So you're fucking yourself long term for a fight that you could have just said you were injured for and got postponed. You didn't do that because you didn't want to lose your place in the queue.
He would have, I feel. Also, let's just talk about the hypocrisy for a second. Dana White has crucified fighters before for pulling out of fights. Champions for pulling out of fights, even. Aldo against McGregor the first time. Nunes against Shevchenko the second time, I think it was. You know, Dana White was always like, it should be fight anyone, anytime, anywhere, under any circumstances, and if you hurt, you fight through it. And this is coming from someone that fucking despises TJ Dillashaw. I hate that little prick. I hate him a little less than I did before Saturday night right now. Not because I think people should be fighting hurt. I think people should be pulling out fights. I think people should be fighting hurt. But if I was in his shoes, yep, I would have gone through with it. Even though it had been a horrible mistake, I would have gone through with it. And I appreciate that the first thing he did was apologise to the rest of the division for keeping that shot to himself. I thought, okay,
Yeah,
you did something that, although I think it's stupid, in a lot of ways it is commendable, and it is definitely something that I would have done. And I think you handled it the right way. But because he apologised, it's such an easy sort of talking point for everyone else. I saw Trent Rhinesmith absolutely slated him in an article on Bloody Elbow. I just thought, wind your neck in, Trent. Like, what else was he going to do?
listen,
Be realistic here.
I don't. How do I put this? I understand what you're saying, and listen. Certainly, do I respect how fucking tough TJ is? Yeah, because that fight was over after 13 seconds, and he managed to drag himself into that second round and look more competitive than a one-armed man should have looked. I have a lot of anger and frustration about, not so much about TJ. I'm annoyed at TJ because when you go into a fight that compromised, and when you hear him talking about, looking defeated in the, the pre-fight interviews, with DC and Laura Sanko and all this kind of stuff, and it just doesn't sound like, I understand going in injured if you think that if you really believe that you can do it. But this just sounded like he was kind of going through the motions and hoping for a miracle. I mean, if his shoulder popped out 20 times,
Yeah.
it's you
That's the
weren't
thing,
going to
though.
be effective.
When your shoulder's that fucked, at his age, realistically, was he going to get back, to another championship, another title shot? When your shoulder's dislocating like that, the one thing you have going for you is that you can pop it back in. And Jesus, you don't know. You don't know. You got to give it a shot, right? You still got the other arm. You can still kick. I mean, you're heavily compromised. But this would be the big thing. He didn't start the fight with a dislocated shoulder. I mean, it was fucked. It was compromised. But I don't know if I'd necessarily describe it as injured. Maybe I'm splitting hairs here.
It's injured. It's an injury that then got untreated and got more injured over time, and then injured again and again and again and again and again, to the point that it has become a chronic immediate injury. I understand it from his point of view to a certain extent, but let's say by some miracle he won that fight. He's then holding up the division again because he's going to be out for fuck knows how long getting that shoulder fixed while he sits on the belt as champ.
Well, I think at that point,
It's
win or lose,
commendable.
does he fight again? He's turning
Maybe
37 in a few months' time. He'll be turning 30. He'll be 37 before Cejudo fights Aljo. I think win or lose, he was going to retire on this one. I think he wouldn't retire in the cage or anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does announce his retirement. I wouldn't be surprised if that was his last fight, and if he'd won, maybe he holds up the division and takes one more fight. Maybe Cejudo has to fight. Well, at this point, probably O'Malley for an interim. As much as I fucking hate the guy, I hate him a little less now.
Josh, who did he take it from? Because if he doesn't take that title shot, doesn't push for that title shot and say he's fit, Aldo gets that shot instead of fighting Merab at altitude.
Well, yeah.
So
maybe
there were other legends that weren't heavily responsible for the chunks of their own career being missed. That probably did.
Aldo, but there's a reason they picked Dillashaw over Aldo, and obviously not because of the Merab fight. Dillashaw had put in a better body of work recently, so that's not Dillashaw's fault. That's on Aldo. That's not on Dillashaw. That's on Aldo. I really feel dirty being a fucking TJ Dillashaw apologist. I'm just saying that 10 years ago, I don't think we'd even be talking about it in even the slightest of negative lights. It's a good thing that times are changing, but
it robbed the fans of this is a paid pay-per-view. Okay, this is a fight that you have to
Did
people
you
were
did you
paying
not
to see. It was
also
one of
enjoy seeing him absolutely get his shit caved in?
because
I
you're
was
not
like, win-win.
it's not you're not going in with two guys fighting on an even keel. You're going in realizing that the fight's basically over after 13 seconds. And I want to end because I'm not trying to shit on TJ. I just wanted to get the stuff that I feel is TJ's responsibility that feel was selfish and in many ways speaks to the nature of his character. It's completely in line with who he is. And did he show toughness? Yeah. But here's the other part I get annoyed at. He shouldn't have had to show toughness because however much he wanted to do this. Hi, I'm just going to mention to you, by the way, that my shoulders popped out 20 times during training camp when they're doing the pre fight medical. Great. Fight's cancelled. You're not going in. It's not a fair competition. It's not fair to sell fans this fight expecting it to be an evenly contested fight to get their money, knowing that it's basically going to be a wounded duck going in there.
Yeah, who
Once
was
the
Cain
shoulder pops
Velasquez
out,
supposed to fight when he mentioned that he was going to get back surgery after the fight? And the athletic commission were like, well, then no fight.
I
Although I would say back surgery, back issues a bit more debilitating than a shoulder that is almost certainly going to become dislocated. Still.
well, here's the other thing. Okay, let's say they let him get through all of this, and he gets to Mark Goddard, and he says, "Yes, and my shoulder might pop out. Please give me a chance to pop it back in." The only thing that Mark Goddard can say to him at that point is, "Yeah, mate. So here's the thing: you go in there and fight. Your shoulder pops out. The fight's over. The same as it is every single other time that somebody's fought in this fucking promotion. Because at that point, you're not going to win. It's no longer a competitive fight. We might let you get through the round, but you're going to go back to your corner and we're going to call the fight off."
Yep. Well, the other thing though is we have to be very realistic here. He's not the only fighter this year to go into a fight with a very severe injury knowing they have no chance to win. And it's not the culture of the sport, and it's not necessarily something that impacts TJ in the same way, but fighter pay, they don't get reimbursed enough for the risks they take. A lot of fighters will fight with serious injuries because it's the only way they can afford to get the surgery afterwards. It's not really where TJ was, but I think if we're going to slate TJ for this, maybe that's fair. We do need to take a look at the kind of hypocrisy in the way that we treat non-championship fights that go on under the same circumstances.
Listen, I I get why fans get frustrated when fighters pull out, and obviously when you have that, there's going to be the guys that have had serious injuries and can't fight, and there's going to be the people that probably could have pulled through and are just choosing not to, and it's something minor, and that kind of smokescreen and lack of clarity as to what it is for each person sort of adds to the frustration. But you get when somebody's really compromised, you just get a poor product. Think about Darren Till when he fought Derek Brunson. And we're just, even when he walked out, we're looking at him going like, fuck, man, that's not the physique you had when you fought Robert Whittaker or Gastelum. You just look like you're a bit saggy and out of shape. And then his performance is sad and he looks a shadow of himself and he gets the loss. And then you find out, yeah, his knees are completely fucked. Could barely do any cardio, could barely do anything. And it's like, oh, you know what I mean? You're letting yourself and everybody else down to a certain extent. Now, I get that TJ's 36. I get that maybe he thought it was his last chance to lean. And I'm a little bitter because I would have liked to see Aldo get that fight instead of having to fight Marab. And you can commend him for going in there and giving it a shot. But as soon as that arm popped out, it should have been fight over. And I think the UFC probably didn't for a whole variety of reasons, because he's a big sell, because he's one of the reasons people are buying the pay-per-view. But it's not the way that it should be. You know, whether you like it or not, that fight was over 13 seconds into it, and we watched it go on for another 7 minutes,
I enjoyed that
basically
bit.
knowing that the result was done, that it was no longer a competitive match.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I enjoyed this in every sense possible. I enjoyed watching Dillashaw get absolutely destroyed. I enjoyed watching Dillashaw earn my respect a little bit. I enjoyed Aljo getting another good little title defense under his belt. And frankly, after the O'Malley Yan fight, I was just really fucking G'd up for the bantamweight division. I didn't care that Dillashaw's out of the picture. I feel like Aljo is going to be a much more active champ than Dillashaw could be at that age,
Agreed.
even with two perfectly fine shoulders.
I like the fact that
I didn't
he's
care. This didn't
quietly
take the
becoming.
shine off the card for me. This is still a really good card for me, right? And I really fucking enjoyed this fight. Make of that what you
Yeah,
will.
I think it's just, the fact that you knew it was going to be so one-sided 13 seconds in, the fact the main event was one-sided. Let's get to Aljo. He did nothing wrong. He did exactly what he was meant to do. He went in there and dominated. There's a lot to suggest that he would have dominated no matter what. We'll never know, but you can only beat what's in front of you. He's slowly becoming, in highly controversial circumstances, one of the greatest bantamweights of all time. It's looking like the Cejudo fight is going to happen. They're two of the cringiest motherfuckers ever, but who cares? But particularly when they put you on a co-main event with the lightweights, you're going to get your money secured. Somebody else is going to get those pay-per-view buys in for you. And I love the fact that he could be one fight away from having a strong argument to say he's up there with Dominic Cruz.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Plus, Marab's never going to fight him. Marab's right fucking up there. It's going to be the highest ranked gatekeeper you ever saw in your fucking life.
And his worst
that whole camp's
stylistic
got it on
matchup.
lockdown. Yeah, definitely.
So he's got that one covered. I mean, eventually, I don't think.
Assuming that Cejudo is more or less where he was when he left the sport, Cejudo is going to be his worst stylistic matchup. Far superior wrestler, far superior striker, slightly superior athlete, just a bit undersized.
Better fight IQ.
Yeah, and I don't want to say better camp, more scientific camp. You know, if you're wanting to come back after time off, training with Albarathin's exactly the way you want to go. You know, shit, man, they even do blood work, take hormone levels to find out the best times of day for you to be fighting and stuff. They take it to the nth degree.
Yeah, and the mental side of the game, Cejudo's a master of. He's one of those guys that if it's a fight in front of the crowd, he'll simulate crowd noise when he's walking out. He'll simulate boos. He'll play his walkout music. It's a real craftsmanship in how they prepare their fighters.
Yeah, if only Paulo da Costa could stop letting him down.
Hey, listen, man, he didn't look too bad in the last fight. And the altitude, you've kind of got to say, after round one, I mean, it was a bit of a fucking shit show from everybody.
Yeah, but da Costa's always going to go down as being a bit of a dickhead and a bit of a moron.
True, but his Twitter game's on point right now.
Look good. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but his Twitter game's on point right now, dude. He's really funny.
Deliberately?
Yeah, he's actually quite funny. He posts good memes. He rips on Brendan Schaub, which I appreciate is like the lowest hanging fruit available in the MMA world.
That's like stealing candy from a child and then booting that child in the face.
It's like shooting a deer that's been run over and taking it home as a trophy.
It's like running a steamroller through the dementia ward.
Yeah, none of which are worse things than the nicest thing that Brendan Schaub has ever said about disabled people.
Which is?
He has this. Yeah, it was just like a hypothetical thing.
My bad.
Did you know there's
I wouldn't be surprised if there was one. Do you know what I mean? Like,
did you know there's like several YouTube channels that are basically dedicated to ripping Brendan Schaub?
The Fighter and the Kid's own subreddit has become dedicated to ripping the shit out of Brian Callen and Brendan Schaub. He is just an absolute idiot. And I'll touch base with you on this later, with the whole like Bobby Lee thing as well. What a moron. Not Bobby Lee.
Yeah.
Sure, but Team Lee all day.
100%. Getting back to the fights, bantamweights are fun. They're no more fun than the two guys who fought in the featured fight. But I kind of feel the wrong guy got his hand raised on this one.
Really?
O'Malley.
I had it for O'Malley.
Oh, really?
I had it rounds 1 and 3 for O'Malley, although round 1 was very close.
Round
Round
one
2
was
I had for Yan.
extremely close.
I had all 3 rounds close. The least close round was round 2 for me. That was Yan's. Round 1 and round 3, I gave him the nod. That was as much as I gave him the nod. I thought, yeah, O'Malley's won this fight. No idea how the judges are going to view it. But again, like, you know, we need to get out of this mentality that more strikes or cleaner strikes or top control or takedowns win you fights. Damage wins you fights. And I think O'Malley probably got credited with a few too many shots than he should have because Yan takes a lot in the guard. But he was hurting Yan. Yan was hurting him back. This was a great fight. This was this must have got
Best
fight of the night, right? Yeah, it did get fight of the night. It's a
100%.
and O'Malley's fucking legit, bro. Whether you think he won or he lost, this was a very, very close fight with one of the most dangerous 35ers you can get.
He belonged.
We the whole knock against him was we just don't know. We haven't seen enough of him. We haven't seen him against top level. The Cheeto fight, you know, it just was what it was with the stinger on the calf. Now we know. He is fucking legit. And he can take some damage, man. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's got a chin and he mentally didn't give up. And there's so much to like. He's got the skills and ability, the footwork, the ability to get back up when he did get taken down, completely, basically negate any serious damage when he was on the bottom. I mean, that was the real decider in that first round, if you do feel that O'Malley won it, and certainly the third round as well, is Yan did get him down to the ground, but he was never really able to hurt him on the ground. And O'Malley was always able to kind of get back to his feet and get back to a kind of safe position. But what was really impressive for me is to go from thinking you've got your opponents on the rope in the second round to getting absolutely blasted, surviving that, going back to your corner, mentally regathering yourself, and then making adjustments for the third round that end up winning you the fight. Because he started popping that jab just constantly. And he stopped trying to set up the big shots and just kept throwing and landing and chucking the odd big one in. And he landed that perfect knee. And, you know, it's those kind of adjustments that you can make in critical moments, you know, after being rocked, fights on the line, in your corner. Can you take the skills that you've got and make the necessary adjustments against a guy who himself is a master at making reads on the feet and adjusting and winning the fight? That's top level, man. Absolutely top level from him, from his coaching team. I did think he lost. I don't think it's a robbery. That first round, you can blink, you can squint, you can look at it either way for either guy. And I think rounds 2 and 3 were fairly clear. But I'll be honest, before the judges' cards were read, I kind of felt it doesn't matter for O'Malley. This is this was the best loss that you could have had, and it turned into a win.
Yeah. Yeah, this was a win or lose, your stock's going up. No one will care that it's a split decision. To some extent, I don't know how much people are really going to care that Yan lost this one. All Yan needs to do is win a couple more times, he's right back in there.
It's a heartbreaker for Yan, though. That's 2 split decisions on the bounce. You know, razor close. Razor close. That's 2 times in a row he's come back thinking, I've won the fight. And you think, where would he be if one of those split, even just one of those decisions goes in his favor? It's a different position than he's in now.
Yeah, well, I mean, the one with Aljo goes his way. There's no fucking way he had to fight O'Malley this week. But do you see Khabib's reaction to the whole thing? When the cards being read out? Just Khabib was just there, like, absolutely in shock. Just, what did he say? Like, how the fuck did he not win that fight? He won every round. Like, what's going on here?
A lot of people feel like he won every round.
I fucking didn't.
I know, it's a weird one. It's a weird one, though. But the thing is because O'Malley's so long, when he lands, it feels like it's such a clean land. You know what I mean? You get that full extension coming through. You see the head get snapped back. But this is kind of one of the negatives with having that high guard, though. You might be blocking a lot of shots, but it's always going to create the perception that those shots are landing.
Yeah, well, I think it was more the way that he did snap the head back a few times. He did rock him. You know, Jan obviously took damage, especially in rounds 1 and 3. You know, it wasn't just it wasn't like O'Malley snuck it past him. You know, and the judges just, you know, he gave him good optics or something. It very much was, because if anything, Jan was the one giving the sort of traditional good optics. You know, the controlled side, the takedowns,
forward pressure.
Yeah. No, O'Malley, it's fucking legit. Very, very close fight. I felt he definitely deserved to win that one. I would not have any complaints if the judges had gone with Jan. But, you know, I kind of enjoy how much people are boo-hooing about the Suga Show jumping all the way up to the #1 contender spot.
Yes, and you beat the guy, you get the spot, you took the risk. You know, how many, put it this way, how many of those guys really would have been willing to fight Jan in the top 10?
Yeah, Cheeto. And Cruz, I don't know what's good for him.
Yeah, Cejudo, I think, is one of the best fighters ever. But he avoided that fucking Russian like the plague. So let's be real. Like, just for Sean to take the fight deserves some respect. And he won. I would love to see a rematch down the line. I'd love to see a 5-rounder.
Oh my god, yeah. That was the real loser of this fight. Was that we only got 3 rounds. As soon as round 1 was in the books, I was like, I don't want to see a finish. I want to see all 15 minutes here. And I will never forgive the matchmakers that this is just a 3-round fight. We absolutely have to see this one run back at some time. Maybe with gold on the line. Probably not.
Yeah, I was just thinking. Potentially. Watch this space. Talking about fantastic performances, didn't have the flash bang and sort of wow factors of the feature fight, but Beneil Dariush versus Gamrot, this was a fucking excellent fight. Just 2 high-level guys who are good everywhere going at it. And Beneil Dariush, again, just reminds everybody, why do you even think that you should be doubting me? I've been doing this for years. I've been here. You know, don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. LL Cool J.
Yeah. Well, just measure the distance so much better. I love the way he had that knee cocked. He was ready to Barbosa Gamrot just like he got done. Everything about Benny D. Hardcore, casual, doesn't matter what level of MMA fandom you describe yourself as. It's impossible not to love this guy when he fights. And Gamrot
he had the speed disadvantage, he had the age disadvantage, but it just doesn't matter. He just figures things out. He negates the right things. The way he kept going for those leg locks and using that to reverse position, he just completely removed the ground game from Gamrot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Top level.
Beneil Dariush has a submission game. He absolutely has a submission game. You can't sleep on that.
It's interesting as well because it makes me really wonder, like, because now we're in that situation where we're looking at like who could beat Makhachev. That ability to handle those ground exchanges and find a way to reverse, that's a problem. That's a puzzle that Makhachev would have to solve.
Oof. I think with the way, you know, he already has his legs kind of set quite safely when he goes for those trip takedowns. I don't know if Benny's really going to get the opportunity to try and scramble underneath and like threaten with like a knee bar, calf slicer, leg lock, anything like that. I think Islam Makhachev, he would have to come in with a very, very different game plan. But between him and Rafael Cordero, you know, I wouldn't sleep on him. In fact, if the bookies did him dirty with the line, I would absolutely throw some money on Benny D.
Yeah, it was. I didn't pick him, but I was pretty happy to see him win. Not gonna lie, that kind of made my day, and I just thought any other situation that's enough for a title shot. And as you kind of alluded to when we were talking earlier in the show, maybe he can just sit, because if they do this Volkanovski Makhachev fight in February, and Makhachev and Volkanovski are pretty happy to fight all the time, he might not have to sit on the shelf for that long.
Also, that's far enough away. They might let him sit his back up. If they let him sit his back up, he makes weight and everything, then I think it's pretty much like guaranteed that you're going to get the next title shot, because they're not going to expect you to fight someone else and get, in between the champion taking another title fight. And he's definitely put the resume out there. So, yeah, I think sit and wait. Hopefully get the opportunity to be back up for the February fight and just kind of move on from there.
Fingers crossed, that would be a lot of fun. But good for Benio, man. People keep doubting him. He keeps just showing them that it doesn't matter. He's got this. Chookagian versus Fiorot. This was not the most exciting fight, but it's a very informative fight. Chookagian's not easy to deal with. Fiorot kind of struggled in that first round with the reach. Made the adjustments. Got the decision. Pretty clear for me.
Yep. I think the most kind of resounding assessment of this fight that you could take is from Fiorot herself, saying that she would like to fight someone else before she fights Shevchenko. She knows she's not ready. She knows she did not have a great performance. Chookagian, as always, just kind of... It's not like she balls out, but she always goes to your level. And sometimes, or quite often, she's got a little higher. So, Manon Fiorot, she belongs near the top here. But all we've got is another top contender that we don't really believe could trouble the champ. So I would like to see it. Maybe, she has another good fight. Or another good fight. Has a good fight.
She called out Alexa.
Yeah. And I think, given our assessment of the Grasso fight, I think that's probably a good fight to make. I think both girls would want to get...
fight.
Yeah. I think both women would want to try and hone up a little bit, put some scary film out there that would make Shevchenko think twice, just get her a little out of her comfort zone if that's even possible. I don't think you could get her out of her comfort zone pointing a gun at her face. Shevchenko doesn't flinch, but still. I've said the same about Charles Oliveira and been proven wrong.
What it would be is both women would have an opportunity to face an opponent that will present some of the problems that they would have to overcome to beat Shevchenko. So for Grasso, she would get practice fighting a high-level kickboxer who is good at throwing strikes, good kicker, fighting out of the southpaw stance. And Manon Fiorot would have to deal with somebody that is going to do an excellent job of mixing in their striking with takedowns. And to be honest, I think that was the big issue with Chookagian, is that once she gave Fiorot enough time to make reads on the feet and realize takedowns weren't coming and get comfortable, she was kind of always going to edge her in the striking, whereas Grasser's going to throw the takedowns in. And that's a problem that, can make a good striker suddenly look very average once they get put on their back a couple of times. And against Valentina, that is a problem that you need to be able to deal with.
Yeah, she definitely needs to round out a game a little. Do you know who doesn't need to round out their game at all?
Bilal Muhammad.
Hell fucking yeah, bro. What a performance.
I can't believe I doubted him. It was so obvious 2 minutes into this. I was watching this just like, oh yeah, Sean Brady hasn't fought this level. That's why he's undefeated.
Yeah. Sean Brady's not going to win a stand-up battle against this guy.
Yeah. It was over the moment he realized he couldn't take him down. And I was amazed at how easy it was for Bilal to prevent the takedowns. All it really took was forward pressure. And then the couple of times that Brady did have a shot, he just pivoted off, got the underhooks, moved off. I mean, it was... You could see Brady just get completely disheartened. And you could also see that he doesn't really have a way of winning a fight if he can't take the guy down right now.
Yeah, I also wonder how many rounds of MMA he can fight on the feet. Because he looked to get tired quite early. Obviously, losing the confidence is going to play into that as well. But when Bilal started teeing off, man, what I really loved about it, as risky as it was, Against a guy like Brady, all he had to really be wary of is one power shot coming back. And it was almost like their hips were tied by a length of string. There was only so far Brady could get away. Bilal was just maintaining the perfect distance to keep pushing, like 1-2, the occasional uppercut, occasional hook, and just fucking blitz on him. And
He's
the
still
uppercuts
very
were lovely.
stiff. Brady's still very stiff with his
Yeah.
striking. And it's not, what Bilal's been able to achieve. He's not the best striker, he's not the most technical striker, but it's mixed in so well with his wrestling. He's got an MMA game, and the striking is part of it, and the wrestling is part of it, and it's all just fluid in the same kind of in the same. What's the word I'm looking for? There's no kind of tell between switching from one to the other. Whereas Brady very much is a wrestler who is okay. Now I'm striking, and when he's striking, it's uncomfortable, and you can see that it's uncomfortable. I think a big factor in terms of his cardio as well, Josh, is that when you kind of dominate everyone that you fight, you get pretty used to short fights, one, and also fights at your pace. Bilal never let him get comfortable. He was always pushing him back. He never let him get a breather. So this might have been the first time in a professional fight that Brady is having to fight somebody else's pace. And that pace is harder than his pace.
Yeah, and like you say, Bilal, his distance and his footwork for his takedowns is almost identical to his distance and his footwork for his punching game. So even though Brady's just kind of eating shit there, he's also got to keep half an eye on getting taken down himself. Very difficult fight for him. Couldn't be happier for Bilal.
Mentally as well, man. Final piece of the puzzle. Training with Khabib, I think he just believed. Believed he belongs, believed he could beat this guy, wasn't listening to the negativity, had no reason to doubt himself after the Luque win especially. And man marches on. I know they're talking about Chimaev fighting Colby, but if for whatever reason that fight doesn't get put together, Bilal seems pretty happy to step in and fight the big bad wolf.
I wouldn't mind seeing it. He hasn't got that same power that Dorino had, where he's going to be able to keep him at bay. But if Chimaev comes in aggressive like he always does, Bilal can blast a double leg like Gilbert Burns wouldn't have been able to. Can that change the tide of the fight? I would love to fucking see it.
Watch that space. Right, we've talked for an age on these first 6 fights, so we're going to have to run through these quite quickly. So a couple of sentences, please, Josh, on Muradov versus Chow.
Muradov started well. He let the fight go away. Bahalio understood how to constantly frustrate, infuriate, and again, just quite impressed with this young gentleman, even though that wasn't the most exciting fight. Muradov is very fucking dangerous.
Yeah, couple of stumbles, but you can see there's a fighter there. Chow, guy's scrappy, man. Don't go to the ground with him, he's a mess. Uzdemir versus Krylov. It was all going so well for Uzdemir, and then it wasn't.
Yeah, a lot of respect to Krylov. He put himself in a bit of a hole in that first round. I honestly thought he was going to get finished. I thought it was stupid to come in trying to play a short, aggressive game in the stand-up. He wanted to be better paced. He was almost kind of just laying it on a plate for Uzdemir. But he belligerently continued with said game plan. And I'll be fucked if it didn't turn out good by the end. Good win. Good fight.
It was a good fight. Very entertaining. Nurmagomedov versus Gadzi Omar Gadziev, which I now know how to say because of John Anik, and it makes perfect sense because he literally has Gadzi in his surname. So of course you pronounce the two of them the same.
Yep, clues in the title.
Decent fight. Yeah, Nurmagomedov wore him down. Pretty one-sided at the end. He had his moments, Gadzi, but Nurmagomedov, he's a Nurmagomedov. He's not the best, but he's still pretty damn good. It was a good fight. Lots of respect between the two guys.
Yeah, this was actually I missed the early prelims, so this was the first fight I saw. So I'm gonna let you give it in a couple of sentences for the last 3.
No worries. Armin Petrosian versus AJ Dobson. Both guys really talented. Petrosian just because I was able to kind of just keep touching him, just outland him in at least 2 of the 3 rounds. It looks like he kind of buggered his knee, and Dobson definitely didn't do the most to capitalize on that. But even compromised, he was still able to just kind of pop that jab, not land hard, but just land clean, and got a clear decision. Good win for Petrosian. Mohamed Makhachev got the submission in the end against Malcolm X Gordon, but it wasn't easy. Looked like he kind of burnt out a little bit after trying to sort of get him out in the round 1. But survived, dealt with it, got the finish in the end. His mouth's a little bit bigger than his talent, I think, right now. Like, he's a really talented guy, but the way he's talking about calling out Brandon Royval, I think he needs a little bit more time to develop. He's a really young guy, but so talented. And good effort from Malcolm Gordon. He did everything to try and stay in this, survived a couple of submissions, held his own on the ground, but in the end, it was just a bit too much. And Carol Rosa out-grappled Lena Landsberg in the end. First round was a bit tricky for her, but she was able to get on top, and basically the story of the fight was once she was on top, Landsberg couldn't really get back up. There was a really stupid knee in the second round. Carol Rosa kneed her illegally on the ground, but didn't end up affecting the result.
Nicely done.
Prelims were okay. Prelims weren't as good as the main card, but I'd rather have a great main card and an okay prelims than the other way around.
Yeah, and that Krylov Uzdemir fight, Mohammed Brady, very, very fucking entertaining.
That was fun. Touching on a bit of news before we call it a day for this edition of the podcast. Cub Swanson is basically saying that leading up to the fights, TJ Dillashaw could barely even move his arm in training. Just more proof that perhaps they shouldn't have gone ahead with that fight. The UFC did apparently offer Aldo one final easier opponent for Brazil return at 283, but he said no.
Probably
And yeah, I feel so. Jones versus Ngannou is not going to happen in December, but it might happen in early 2023. John Jones has said he's happy to fight in December, though, so it's a little bit unclear as to what.
Well, I've missed something here then. Miocic is out.
Yeah, well, I've heard Jones talking about Miocic in December. This article here, which is according to Eric Nixick, is saying that they've been called and asked what his ideal timeline is, and they said early 2023 and ideally John Jones. So it might be a case that if they feel they can't get the Stipe Miocic fight done, then they're just going to pause it and keep it held off and then do the Ngannou fights next year.
Interesting. I would definitely like to see the Miocic fight first. Mostly
I would like to
I'm
see the
interested
Miocic
to see
fight
if,
first.
Miocic could take not the literal but the figurative O off of John's record.
Yeah, and also I just feel like, the greatest heavyweight historically versus greatest ever light heavyweight historically. I feel like the significance of that is a bit greater than the Ngannou fight, considering that the winner can then fight Ngannou, and then that fight's even bigger.
No, definitely.
But hey, that's just me. And we've had some fights added to UFC 282. That is starting to look pretty damn stacked. We've got, obviously, the headliner being Prochaska versus Glovic Teixeira 2. Co-main at the moment, Jan versus Ankalaev. Paddy Pimblett versus Jared Gordon. Bryce Mitchell versus Topuria. Dricus du Plessis taking on Darren Till. Robbie Lawler versus Santiago Ponzinibbio. Chris Curtis versus Joaquin Buckley. Thank you, fight gods. That's an amazing fight. Shabazian versus Lungi Mbula. Quarantillo versus Alexander Hernandez. Jesus Christ, that's an amazing card.
Yeah, only because you get to see Billy Q fight someone you fucking can't stand. But yeah, that is
True.
a very good card.
And Chris Daukaus versus Jarzinho.
Oh, come on, Chris. Let's bring it back.
Some good fights. I'll tell you what, the next few pay-per-views, man, are looking absolutely stacked to shit.
Yeah, it's a good time to be an MMA fan, and it's not really that stacked. But Saul Rogers, Charlie Ward are both fighting, not against each other, but they're both fighting Bellator 287 this weekend. That's two reasonably okay reasons to tune in.
Nice.
There
And there is
are
UFC
some
this
good
weekend. Look
Yeah,
out
we'll
for our
be breaking
UFC
that down.
preview show.
I'll be out tomorrow.
UFC Vegas 63. Arnold Allen taking on Calvin Kattar. We will be discussing it. That video will be dropping shortly after this one. Guys, thanks for listening for today's episode. Like, subscribe, all of that jazz, comment, and see you next time. Bye, Dave. Bye, Retriever.
Bye, Dave.